for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amy Williams. I'm the founder of Parenting Through Prana. And what I do is I help parents shift their daily challenges into opportunities for heart-centered connections with their children. And we do that. I'm an expert in energy, and I use that expertise to help parents and their families. So with having my own family and being a pranic healer and practicing Arhatic yoga, I started to see a lot of overlap between what I was learning about how things work energetically and then how I was seeing things play out in my family and with my children. And so I began to merge those two things together and started seeing some truths that contradict our current parenting paradigm. So what I teach now is those, what I feel are deeper spiritual and energetic truths around how we interact with our children and what we can be doing as parents to create a more joyful experience of parenthood that doesn't always align with what we're taught from society and from our parents and media, of course, and all the influences around us. So when I came into parenting, I noticed that a lot of the things that I had observed or was being told, they just didn't really sit right in my heart. They didn't feel good to me, and I felt like I was kind of always fighting with myself to do what I thought I was supposed to do as a parent, even though I could see that that was causing pain in myself and sometimes pain in my children. So I began looking for solutions. I began looking for other ways to approach parenting because I just couldn't believe that parenting was supposed to be this really difficult thing, because how could something so natural as us having children and then bringing them up to be happy humans, how could that be something that was so so at odds with everything that I felt that I was being told and taught? And what I found was that the underlying cord that connected everything was simply the energetics or the prana of it. So we're going to talk about one aspect of using that prana in your daily lives and how we're already using it. A lot of people just don't even realize it's already affecting everything. It's already the groundwork of what's happening. So I just want to shine light on how you can kind of tap into or hack into that system and make it work more for you, as opposed to sort of being the victim of it and it just kind of doing what it does without having a conscious interaction with it. So the first thing is, when you're creating a joyful experience of parenthood, is that we have to recognize that whatever experience we're having is 100% inside of us. And the way that most of us interact with the world before we come into this awareness and learn how to work with energy in this way is that we're often reacting to our outside world, and we are not in a space of understanding that what's coming through us actually has an impact on the world around us. And if we can harness that, and if we can put all of our attention and energy into coming from the inside out, we have a lot more control over what we experience. I like to use the example of if the water's on the outside of the boat, everything's fine, right? It's when the water gets in that the boat starts to sink. And when we have our experiences in our daily life, you know, those little frustrations that can pile up, that's like the water outside of the boat. But a lot of times we're letting it in and it's sinking us energetically. It's making us stressed and it's making us frustrated and angry, and we lash out. And because we haven't developed enough of an awareness to recognize that that doesn't have to happen, that we don't have to be a sponge for everything that's coming in, then we let the boat sink. So one way that we're gonna work through keeping those daily stressors from piling up on us is by understanding better how forgiveness works. Now, if you've heard of forgiveness before and that's a trigger for you, I highly encourage you to just kind of stick around and hear what I have to say about it. I was raised as a Missouri Synod Lutheran in the church, and so forgiveness is a word that we heard a lot and were encouraged to utilize, but I feel like there wasn't any real practical application. It was just kind of like, well, just figure out how to let it go. One thing that I learned through my studies in prana is that forgiveness is actually a really powerful energetic tool, because whenever we are experiencing discontent with another person, we're having an energetic relationship with them. So that could be the person who cuts you off in traffic. It can be tripping over your children's shoes. It can be people who have really greatly harmed us. But until we energetically let go of that, we are still continuing to have an energetic relationship and interaction with them all based off of this very negative experience. Now, I thought when I started practicing what I call more of a functional forgiveness, it really functions. It's very practical in your life. It has a genuine application that makes a difference in how you show up, how you can handle things. Forgiveness is freedom. That's the best way that I can put it for you. And until you really deeply experience it, it's kind of just a word. So I really like to teach parents how to use forgiveness so that it's no longer just a word or an idea or something that they're kind of aspiring to because we know we're supposed to and we know it would help us, but we don't really know what it means. So I like to help parents be able to actually utilize this. And if you make a practice of it, it's going to completely change your relationship, your interaction with your children, and it's going to completely change your experience of parenting. Because for the most part, I think, for me at least, I can be honest and say that while there are some big things that are difficult in parenting, for me personally, it's all the little things that continue to pile up day after day after day after day. It's the 100 times I had to say, pick up your toys. It's the it's trying to get a small child into a car seat when they don't want to, knowing that you have to get somewhere now. So I think you all know what I'm talking about, right? If you don't, then I don't know, I need your secrets. But for me, it's not so much the big things, it's those tiny little things. And I always saw forgiveness as something you do for big things, right? Like somebody really hurts you, so that's when you have to work on forgiveness. But by happen chance, I decided through what I was learning, I decided to do forgiveness for my children one day. And I wasn't particularly super upset at them or anything. I just kind of wanted to know what was going to happen. And up to that point, I would have said, I don't carry resentments towards my children. I don't, I'm not super angry at them. I let things go. I love them. They're my whole world. But the experience I had that first time walking through a deep forgiveness and energetically letting go of all of those little things, it really completely changed my outlook and the way that I approach parenting. Because I realized that even though we may not consciously be aware of it, even though we're not necessarily carrying with us all the time, we don't harbor a deep resentment towards our children, all those tiny little things are just lots of tiny little energetic cords that are connected, where if you find yourself in any way being like, oh, not again, or one more time, or I've told you a million times, or anything that shows that you are not happy and not having a joyful experience of having to parent in that moment because you've already done it before and you're tired of it and you don't want to do it again, that is just a red flag and alert that this would benefit you, that forgiveness is something that you can use to kind of let go. Now I highly recommend as you start, you do it kind of in the evening, at least a few times a week. And then as you practice, I always encourage practicing at times when it's not super high stress, But the more you practice and create a habit of it, then when you are in those stressful situations, you can use what I call kind of a rescue remedy. And you can bring that into play. And that's kind of a way of, as that frustration is arising right then and there, instead of letting it sit and harbor, we can kind of just cut that cord and move on. And the best thing about, at least I think, about everything that I teach is that I want to give you tools that you can use inside of yourself all the time. So while many of us may have a deep spiritual practice, and that may require certain paraphernalia, you know, setting things up in a certain way, having a certain amount of space, having a certain amount of time. In parenthood, there aren't a lot of breaks for that. So you really have to look for the gap. You have to look for that break in the moment. You have to be willing to show up in that second and kind of, what I hear a lot of yoga teachers say, take your yoga off the mat. You have to be able to bring that spiritual practice and bring the things that you're learning, and you have to be able to bring it into that moment. And so the best way to do that is to cultivate yourself energetically outside of those stressful times, so that instead of it being something you're grasping for and reaching for and trying to have at that time, it's just simply more of who you are and what you are, and that is able to come out during those times. So when we do forgiveness, it's a way of allowing yourself to energetically let go of a negative connection that is kind of zapping some of your energy. Now, with our children, we have really wonderful, loving, connective cords to them. We have very strong, heart-centered energies, and our energy is being exchanged with them a lot. Partly because we're just around them more than other people, so you're interacting more and your energy is going to move back and forth. It's like when you pick up your child from school or they come in the room and you can just immediately feel that there's a problem. You know that they're upset about something. Well, it works both ways. They feel that too from us. So when we have these little kind of like micro afflictions between us, right? We may not be consciously thinking of it, but it is energetically present. So for our child, when we're having to repeat something a bunch of times, or they, you know, they've done something and we have to take some type of action to help them learn that lesson, that can feel very exhausting on us because we've done it so many times before and we still are harboring and holding on to all those little connections to each of those times that we had to do it. Now, through forgiveness, it's kind of a way of just kind of coming through and like cutting off those cords, cutting off the little weights that are holding us down that make it difficult in that moment to step up in the way we want to. Because the very first time we had to help our child tie their shoe or teach them how to do something, most of us probably showed up pretty patient and pretty willing to help them learn. And we were maybe even excited, like, great, yes, you're finally going to tie your shoes. I'm ready to be there for you. Let's do this. And over time, the repetitive nature of having to do it time and time again, that starts to wear, right? Then we're not as patient and we're not as loving and we're not as kind and we're just kind of barking orders and like we're frustrated and it just feels like so draining. Like, why do I have to do this again? When we do forgiveness, it helps to get rid of kind of all those other times so that you can be showing up as if it's the first time. And if you think about how that feels inside of you, that is a much happier experience of parenting. When you can show up to each moment as if it's the first time, when you can show up with that same heart-centered love that you had when you were excited about helping them ride their bike, or you were excited that they were learning their ABCs and you were so proud of them. And when you can let go of that, while your experience will immediately change, this will also help the child because they no longer are feeling that too. They're also no longer picking up on your frustration, which whatever we have inside of us, whatever we're directing out, you know, it's kind of like washing over them. And their energy is so receptive to us because they love us so much and they want to make us happy. Even if they are acting in less than loving ways or ways that don't make us feel like that's what they want at that time, they're mostly responding and reacting to our energy and what we're putting out. So we can come in kind of with a mop and we can kind of clean up that energy and give it a fresh new start. So things that have been frustrating in the past can become less frustrating. So I want to tell you guys an interesting story that happened this past week with me. So I have been teaching about forgiveness for a few years now. And it was a big part of the Family Healing Challenge I did a couple of years ago. And through everything that's been happening in the world, somebody that I study with did several sessions free with daily forgiveness. And so because I understand forgiveness and I value it, I know that even if I don't feel like I'm harboring anything, there's always things that we can be letting go of. I decided to go ahead and do her sessions. And I loved them. They were wonderful. But I had a very interesting experience. I'm going to get a drink real quick. So one of the days we were supposed to forgive our friends for anything that, you know, they may have done and ask for forgiveness in return. And while I was doing it, you know, in my mind's eye, a person came up that I'm no longer friends with, but had been friends with. And there had been a situation where I felt like she wasn't really honoring me. And so I had to step away from that. And this person came up and I felt like I've done the forgiveness for this. It doesn't bother me anymore. It's not something I think about. Again, I felt that we had worked through this. But what I found, can you guys not chat right now? Sorry, it's just really distracting. Okay, well, we'll do all questions and everything at the end. So I just felt these really overwhelming emotions, and then by the end, after doing this, you know, I felt a lot of release. I thought this is it's very interesting to be having such a deep experience for something I've already done a lot of work on. And then this was a couple of months ago. I didn't understand my experience. I just thought, well, it was needed to be done. So this week, I actually found out that that person had repeated the action, which had been so damaging in the past. And I had no idea that this had happened. So they had repeated the thing that they had done before that had hurt me so deeply last time. They had actually done it again. I just had not been made aware of it yet. And in the process of them doing that, it had led to somebody else rejecting them and not being okay with their actions. So when I found out about this, normally, you know, when you find out somebody's done something to hurt you, at that time you go, oh, you have the pain then, right? But I didn't have any pain with it. I didn't have the stress. I didn't have the resentment. I was just, oh, okay, that's fine. And I wasn't pretending, like genuinely inside. Like I was even kind of questioning. I was like, huh, I'm taking this very well. This isn't really upsetting me. Like normally this would be very upsetting to me, and it's not. And then I remembered having done the forgiveness sessions before. So the point of this story is that even things that we are unaware of carry an energetic cord. During the time when I was doing the forgiveness session, it would have actually been right after this person had done that action that I was unaware of until this past week. So even though I was consciously not aware of it, energetically, the connection and the pain was there. Energetically, we were already connected through that because through that person's rejection, it would have led to resentment towards me. And through the pain that they were causing, you know, that would have had an energetic influence on me. So even though I was unconsciously aware, my energetic body knew what had happened, knew what was going on. And at that time, I was able to actually release it all, let it go. So it wasn't something I was carrying anymore until suddenly I found out it had happened and there was no effect. So the point of this is that we can be impacted energetically by things that we have no idea about, that we're not consciously aware of. So through practicing forgiveness, especially with our children and our families, we can really wipe that slate clean and help us to show up every day more ready to take on those challenges. And it helps us to show up as our best self, not as someone who's already frustrated, not as somebody who's already at the end of their ropes with things, but somebody who's genuinely ready to show up, to serve, to help. And when we come from a space of that, it allows us to be setting an example of that for our children so that they can follow along and go, oh, okay, like they know that they've been told 100 times. And, you know, that's just where they're at in their development. They just need to be told 100 times. You know, they just need to spill their glass of milk 1,000 times before they develop the coordination to not do that anymore. And us having these kind of micro resentments that we may or may not be aware of doesn't actually help them do better at it. Our frustration when they knock over their glass of milk doesn't help them do better at it. It really just creates an energetic burden for them where they are now dealing with fear, stress, anxiety, all of the things that go along with somebody not being happy with you when all you want is to make them happy and to do the right thing. And just like those cords of resentment that we may share with other people, those become cords to them. That becomes an energetic burden that they have to carry where they can no longer just focus on, oh, I'm just going to pick up and drink my milk. They have all these other energetic layers that are bombarding them and taking away their energy at that time. So it's like helping them to focus better because their energy can be more focused on the current situation and action, which children are generally very good at anyways. They're very present and in that moment. They're not worrying about the future. You know, they're not stressing over the past, but it can help them to be able to do that more because they aren't energetically burdened with these cords of our displeasure because we did not enjoy the experience of having to tell them 100 times. We didn't enjoy the experience of, you know, them knocking over their milk because we were not showing up as our best self at that moment. Okay, let me look at the time real quick. Let's see where we're at. Okay, we're about halfway through. So I want to walk you guys through an exercise. So if you're ready for that, I'll just give everybody a second to kind of get comfortable. Try to be in a situation where you can just relax and close your eyes. And we're actually going to go through a very short visualization for helping you release these cords, let go of these stresses, and do some forgiveness with your children. Now, typically I would do this guiding it kind of one child at a time, and that's what I would highly recommend. But due to time and the situation, you know, everybody has a different number of children. We're kind of going to do it as a group today. So I'm going to get a drink and everybody just relax and be receptive. And with your eyes closed, I want you to visualize your children in front of you, however many that may be. Now I know I'm in the US, but in other countries, the living situation is with a larger family. So if you happen to be a grandparent, or you happen to have nieces or nephews running around too, you can visualize your own adult children and visualize any other small children that are in the area, whether they are children that you feel you have frustration with or not. Let's just do all the children, okay? And if there is any child in particular that you feel like you don't want to forgive, this is the child you most need to forgive. So visualize them all in front of you. See them about a foot tall. I want you to look each person in the eye, one at a time. Take your time, go slowly. See them in front of you. Try to think of one thing that you like about each person. One way that you're grateful that they are in your life. And I want you to bring your attention to the heart in the center of your chest. And still looking at all of these people, I want you to simply say, I love you. I love you. I love you. And we do this to activate our heart so that we have more love to give. Looking them in the eye, say, I forgive you. I forgive you for all the ways that you have hurt me, whether I knew it or not, whether you knew or not. I love you. I forgive you. Evolution implies time and mistakes. We all have lessons to learn. I am learning too. Thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for forgiving me for any of the ways that I have hurt you, whether I knew it or not. And then bring the attention back to your heart. Take a deep breath and inhale. Feel it move up above the head, up to the crown. Exhale and let it go. Give this over to a higher power. Okay, coming back down into the heart and seeing those same people in front of you. We're going to do this 2 more times. We're going to speed it up just a little bit. So visualize them in front of you. All of the children that are in your household. If you're a grandparent, your own children and their children. You're going to say, I love you. I forgive you for all the ways that you have hurt me, whether you knew or not. Thank you for forgiving me for all the ways I have hurt you, whether I knew or not. Evolution implies time and mistakes. We all have lessons to learn. I am learning too. I love you. I forgive you. And I want you to visualize cords from each of these people and just visualize cutting them, saying, go in peace. Bringing the attention back to the heart, inhale deeply. Moving the energy up above the head to the crown. Exhale, letting go and giving this over to a higher power. Allow yourself to feel the peace. Allow yourself to feel lighter without these burdens, even if you didn't know they were there to begin with. And coming back down into the heart, again, see these same people in front of you. Look them in the eyes, remembering how much you love them. I love you. I forgive you for all the ways that you have hurt me, whether I knew or not, whether you knew you hurt me or not. Evolution implies time and mistakes. We all have lessons to learn. I am learning too. Thank you for forgiving me for all the ways that I have hurt you, whether I knew or not. I love you. I forgive you. And then again, cutting those cords and say cut, 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 allowing them to go in peace. Inhale deeply at the heart, moving energy up to the crown. Exhale, giving all of this up to a higher power. Just take a few more cleansing and calming breaths. And allow this peace to wash over you and through you, as you're no longer burdened. As the path has been cleared, for you to have more joyful and loving experiences with these people again. Deepening your bonds, keeping only the cords which connect us in our hearts and allow us to share love. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Hopefully you're smiling, because it feels amazing when we do forgiveness that actually works on an energetic level and helps free us from all of those daily stressors that can pile up that we don't even realize are piling up on us and maybe don't know how to let go of. We can be looking for solutions outside of us, like, how do I stop having to deal with that problem? But the real solution is not, well, okay, that is important too. So I'm not going to say it's not. It is important to look for ways to make your life more efficient and better on the outside. But when there are things that we can't keep from happening, you know, certain developmental stages that our children go through where they just simply, they need us to hold them, or they need us to give them a bottle, or they need us to rock them to sleep at night. And they have these needs that we have to meet, right? For their development, for their health, for their well-being. But that can feel at times burdening on us, like we just don't have the energy or the patience to do it the way that we want to, right? And then that becomes a cycle of guilt where we feel bad because we know we should have been patient, we know we should have been calmer, and we wish that we had been able to show up as just the best, most perfect parenting version of ourselves at that time, but we just didn't have it. So when you do forgiveness like this, not only does it unburden you from those things that are weighing you down, it also helps to interrupt and reprogram that guilt cycle. So if you're letting go of these things every day, then you show up more fully, more prepared, more ready for those moments in your daily parenting life which alleviates for you the piling up of guilt, which then just becomes more stress that you carry into the next day, right? So we all know that if you're really happy and things are going well, then you handle things better. And we don't have to wait for big events. We don't have to wait for things to align on the outside of us. We can start cultivating and creating that inside of us. So instead of allowing what's out here to influence the inside, we are the people who are harnessing our energy, cultivating our internal space, and imbuing our atmosphere with that, because at every moment of every day, you deserve to be happy and joyful and filled with love. And the more that you step into your power to make that happen, instead of relying on the outside, then the more when things on the outside don't line up the way that we would maybe most want, it doesn't affect what's going on inside quite as much, where you can be more of an observer and you can see what's happening, but it doesn't control you. You aren't just a sponge absorbing, walking through a space, feeling anger and being angry. You are radiating from the inside out that love that creates the joyful experience. So one way that I like to help people think about it, because words like love and joy and happiness are so charged, like we have an idea of what it takes to be that and what that means. So if you just think about it as, if you are the color pink, that is where you are going to make the healthiest choices from. It's where life is going to feel easiest from. It's where you're going to have the best relationships from. It's where you're going to have clarity of thought and balance in your emotions. So if being the color pink gives you all of those things, then at any point in the day, if you feel yourself being blue or green or red or yellow, you know that the optimal state for you is to choose pink, right? That's how our energy works too. Love, actual energetic frequency, vibration of love is what is best for us. It gives us all of those things. And when we feel ourselves going in another direction, when we feel ourselves feeling the sadness or the anger or the stress, the answer to all of that is always to shift back into activating our heart chakra so that we can be filled with that loving energy so that we can handle each of those situations. Our emotions are like the alert system. They're the shining bright lights trying to get our attention, let us know, hey, you need more love. You need more love. You need to shift back into that. And the more we ignore it, or we try to look for a solution on the outside before we've done the work on the inside, the louder they're going to get. Like a toddler who wants a piece of candy and can't have it, and they're screaming and yelling and throwing themselves on the ground. Your emotions are going to get louder and louder. That's why we end up screaming at our children or creating harsh punishments towards them. I don't know anyone who's ever done that from a place of feeling love. We're doing it from anger. We're doing it from fear. We're doing it from sadness and guilt and just stress and overwhelm, right? So the reason that comes out in that way is because we haven't cleaned it up energetically up to that point. And so it's piling up to get our attention and let us know. And until we develop an awareness that it's not really the child in front of us that has made us this angry, it's our lack of choice of imbuing ourselves with love to be able to handle that differently, then we're always going to look to the outside as the problem. And it's so much more empowering when you realize that you have the ability at any moment of any day to completely shift and change that. So it's a very big topic. I could talk for hours about it. I have a lot more resources about this on my website and in my Facebook groups. So if anyone would like to connect in those ways and learn more about those topics, you can just reach out to me. If you just search Parenting Through Prana on Instagram, Facebook, or even on Google, you will find me.